Ladies and gentlemen, our program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, our program will begin in 2 minutes. Please take your seats. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seats. Our program begins now. Welcome to the 25th Annual DATOS, the State of Arizona's Hispanic Market. Please join me in welcoming our MC, the Director of Diversity Initiatives and Community Engagement at the ASU Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, Vanessa Ruiz.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Muchísimas gracias. Ladies and gentlemen, muy buenos días. It truly is a pleasure being here with all of you. I want to take a quick moment before we get started and just recognize the fact that we're all here in person, having the opportunity to gather once again. I think that is worth celebrating. As I said, es un placer estar aquí con todos ustedes esta mañana. And also, I want to give a very special welcome to those who are watching us via our live stream, because yes, that is now a permanent thing in our lives. I always appreciate the fact that the Chamber, Monica Villalobos and her team invite me to be a part of this event. This event actually has been a part of my own personal journey since I arrived to Arizona, 6 years ago? First as a news anchor and now as a member of the leadership team in higher education. So again, it's been a journey and it's always a unique pleasure to be here. On behalf of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, thank you all again for being here. This is the release, listen to this, of the 25th edition of DATOS, the State of Arizona's Hispanic Market. So DATOS, by the way, is the single most comprehensive collection of secondary research data on Arizona's Hispanic market. No other chamber in the United States produces such a report. Truly, as we all know, DATOS is one of a kind. So during today's program, you will hear from several guest speakers, including the Arizona Hispanic Chamber President and CEO, Monica Villalobos, who also serves as the publication's editor. The AZHCC would really like to thank our title sponsor, which of course none of this would be possible, SRP, which has been with DATOS since the very beginning. They believe in the work and ensure that all of you benefit from it. And also adding their support to DATOS are PNC Bank, Great Heart Schools, and Vantage West Credit Union. Our media partners help us get the word out, and they include the Phoenix Business Journal and Univision. So in fact, if you will check, you will see that each of you have a copy of the Phoenix Business Journal at your seats that provides valuable information and a sample of you will find in that 232-page book. Now the Chamber invites all of you to please let the world know that you're here today. Again, it's a special celebration. And you could do so through social media platforms using the hashtag, there it is up there on the screens, hashtag DATOSAZ. I always love to see the photography and the commentary and the live streaming and the live tweeting that comes from this event every single year. Also, by the way, please stay around for the entire show because we will be raffling off 2 tickets to the famous Black and White Ball, and this time it's going to happen on May the 7th, 2022, right here at the Arizona Grand. And by the way, yes, you have to be present in order to win those 2 tickets. So once again, a great incentive to stick around. So don't miss out on your chance to get those 2 hot tickets. And now, let's get started, shall we? As you enjoy your breakfast and your cafecito. Join us this morning. We have our first speaker of the program, the Governor of the State of Arizona, Doug Ducey.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. It's good to see you again, and it's certainly great to be here. It's a real honor to be celebrating the 25th annual DATOS and also to celebrate Arizona's Hispanic market and all the success that is happening in this community and in our state. This is one of my favorite events every year, and I'm so glad that we're able to gather here in person, and I know folks are joining us on the live stream as well. You know, it's amazing how much has happened just in this past year. If you think about how differently Arizona looked at this time of our last year's DATOS. We didn't yet have a fully approved vaccine. Our economy was still bouncing back, and this event was held exclusively and only virtually. You flash forward to today, and you'll see we've come a long way since then. We've distributed the vaccine to over 4 million Arizonans, 750,000 of which are of Hispanic descent. Our economy is roaring in Arizona. We have more people at work today than we did before the pandemic. When we were at an all-time historic high in February of 2020. We've recovered over 100% of the private sector jobs, and today, again, we are celebrating in person, and much of that success is fueled by this economy. We couldn't have weathered the storm without the support of our Hispanic communities. Last year's DATOS report found that Hispanic buying power would reach $57 billion in Arizona by 2022. This year's report has found that Hispanic purchasing power reached $63 billion last year, crushing expectations through what was called a global pandemic and a national recession. It's incredible, the statistics and purchasing power and economic engine of this community. And of course, the contributions of our Hispanic community exceed far beyond the economy. They also add to the rich experiences through art, music, literature. They're important and critical members of our faith communities. They protect Arizonans as law enforcement officers, and they act as leaders across our state. These have all been critical components of Arizona as we've grown over the years, and they were especially important last year. Through some of the darkest times in Arizona's lives, religion, art, and community served as a guiding light for men and women throughout our state. And when I think of Arizona's many Hispanic leaders, past and present, countless names and friends come to mind. Representative Ed Pastor, Arizona's first Hispanic American elected to Congress. Governor Raul Castro, the first Hispanic to be elected to serve as our state's governor. Arizona Corporation Commission Chairwoman Leah Marquez Peterson, the first Hispanic woman to serve statewide in office here in Arizona. Hello, Leah, if you're out there. And Arizona Supreme Court Justice John Lopez, the first Hispanic to serve on our state Supreme Court, who I was proud to have appointed. And of course, our numerous Hispanic state legislators from both sides of the aisles, my good friend Tony Astorga, who invited me to my first DATOS breakfast, and I've known since I was an undergraduate at Arizona State University, and many, many more. We must recognize the service and commitment of these men and women, and I hope you'll join me in sending a big thank you to all of our Hispanic service members, veterans, first responders, teachers, medical professionals, business leaders, public servants, and many, many more. Thank you all. And at this time, I'd like to invite the former president and CEO of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Sandy Ferniza, onto the stage. Now, I want to remind you that 25 years ago, Sandy oversaw the creation of DATOS, and you heard from Vanessa that other states don't have these kind of statistics. Every year since, the team has put together this report which shows us how far we've come and how we can still improve. Sandy. Thank you. What's something you've really created here?
Thank you. And it's still alive and Monica's doing a great job. Thank you.
So I want to, and I know you all want to join me in thanking Sandy and the entire team that has carried this torch at the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for your hard work in putting together this annual report and advocating for our Hispanic communities. Sandy, it is because of your leadership that Arizona's economy continues to grow and continues to exceed expectations. And it's my honor to present you with this formal commendation recognizing the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for their service and advocacy. Now come stand over here.
Governor Ducey, friends, I'm a little surprised. So thank you for this honor. I think what's important to me is that 25 years ago, two other colleagues of mine, one a board member and one a staff member, Gemma Duarte Luna and Rhonda Carrillo, who are at that table over there, got together and created DATOS in response to the many inquiries that the Chamber used to get about who are Hispanics, what do they do, what's their earning power, what are the businesses doing. And as our corporate sponsor then, Bank of America, came to the table with us and said, let us help you make the business case. Let's talk about what our business community is doing, not just who we are as consumers or other facts of life. So I commend Monica and the board for the work that they continue to do. They have not only sustained my baby, DATOS, but have grown it and achieved national recognition for what they do with DATOS. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Stand right next to me. I'll finish up, and then we'll go off down together.
Okay.
Thank you again, Sandy. I mean, this really demonstrates the power of one leader in our community and what can happen in a very short amount of time. I know there are young Hispanic leaders out there today that are going to show us what they're going to do in the coming decades. 2 weeks ago today was the last day of Hispanic Heritage Month. But even though the month is over, we should continue to celebrate Sandy and Hispanic heritage in our state. Arizona's Hispanic women and men have helped build up our state since the very beginning. And as they've shown by Sandy's report that we call DATOS, they will continue to be an integral part of Arizona's success. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Governor Ducey. Now, everyone, please join me in also welcoming to the stage today's premier sponsor, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, and also a founding sponsor of this event, Salt River Project. I am honored to welcome to the stage Associate General Manager and Chief Human Resources Executive for SRP, Jerry Mingura. Please watch the video on the screens as she makes her way to the stage.
SRP is safeguarding Arizona's water for today and tomorrow. Through planning, innovation, and commitment, we're making sure water flows through the valley for generations to come. Learn what you can do at srpnet.com/water.
Thank you, Vanessa. Y buenos días todos. It's great to see you all here in person instead of on a Zoom call. I'm glad we can be here together for this much anticipated event. The fact that so many of us are here is a clear indication of the importance of the information and perspective provided by annual DATOS, State of Arizona Hispanic Market Report. We know that Latino-owned businesses are helping to drive the state's thriving economy. In fact, here's a small preview from this year's report. Over the last 2 years, Latino-owned businesses grew their annual revenue at a higher rate than other businesses. More than half of Latino-owned businesses reported being profitable despite COVID-19 challenges. and more than half Latino business owners are very confident about their business recovery. The numbers are very encouraging and demonstrate the resiliency of these businesses and the Hispanic market overall. And there are many other indicators that show that the Valley and Arizona will continue to grow and thrive. SRP can vouch for that. As an energy and water provider, we see the demand for new construction in residential, industrial, and commercial, and it continues to be strong. In meeting this demand, we're committed to always delivering power that is affordable, reliable, and sustainable. This reflects SRP's commitment to our customers to keep the lights on, especially when they need it most. SRP teams work alongside local and state organizations to help recruit and retain businesses. And we are proud that we recently were named one of the top large utilities in the nation for economic development. As all of you understand, supporting growth and prosperity comes with responsibility to be inclusive and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to share in our collective success. As business leaders and as a community, we know that we are stronger when we celebrate our differences and embrace the diversity that makes Arizona such a special place. So, congratulations to the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for 25 years of DATOS. Thank you for your work on this project and your many contributions to the state. You are truly helping to educate, inform, and unite our community. Gracias, and enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Jerry, and thank you, SRP, for your support. And now, ladies and gentlemen, again, honored to welcome to the stage this morning none other than Monica Villalobos, President and CEO of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. It's exciting. Is everybody awake? Ya tomaron su cafecito, ¿verdad? Let me hear it. Buenos días. Muy bien, gracias, gracias. Thank you to all of you for being here, especially our live stream audience that couldn't be with us here live. We look forward to seeing you maybe next year. But for those of you that are here in the room, what a wonderful day we have planned for you. So much content. But I want to add my gratitude to the governor as well for showing up every year and making the effort to listen to us. He's been reading the book. I think it's by his nightstand maybe. So we're very excited to be part of that. And also to thank all of our elected officials. We'd like to thank you for your service. If you are an elected official, can you please stand at this time so that we can recognize you and give you a round of applause? Excellent. Thank you so much. And I just want to share some of the wonderful things that are happening at the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. In the last year, in 2020, we know that with our $2 million budget, we made an economic impact of $130 million. And that's measured by the federal government by access to contracts, access to financing, and job creation. So $130 million impact on those first two measures. And we created or retained over 1,000 jobs in Arizona just in 2020 during the pandemic. And we were able to do all of that without having to furlough, lay off, or cut back salaries of our amazing staff that kept the doors open, that kept serving our customers. We've been around since 1948. In over 70 years, nothing like this had happened before, and we were able to be there and to show up for our members. So at this time, I'd like to ask the staff of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, my internal customers and the best team on the planet, to please stand to be recognized. Thank you all so much for recognizing them. They make us look really, really good. And of course, I want to thank our wonderful board of directors, our chairwoman, Annette Musa. This is only the second time in our 70-year history that we have had both a female chairwoman of the board and female president. So thank you so much, Annette, and to the entire board of directors. Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, we are incredibly excited to be here. We have so much to share with you. We have subject matter experts. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. You're going to have a lot of data. Pull those pens out. You're going to be writing lots of notes or put them into your phone. I'm still old school. I like to write them down. But if you put them in your phone, I promise you they will come in handy. And I want to start off just talking a little bit about what we did 3 years ago that was really a game changer for us. We partnered with Vitalist Health Foundation, and they brought a national best practice to Arizona called the Elements of a Healthy Community. And these are all the social determinants of a healthy community. And what we did is we said, let's look at our data through this framework and adjust the lens so that our data can be more actionable. And that's exactly what we did. I gave you the example a few years ago of how this made a difference for us. So for instance, we know that 10% of Latinos in the US are either food insecure or live in a food desert. So now, when we go speak to our food retail partners and we look through this lens and we think about affordable food, our conversation is not about sponsoring the latest fiesta. Those things are important. We love to have fun. But we talk about, hey, here's a zip code that needs one of your supermarkets. That is a far more powerful conversation, and it makes our data much more actionable. One of the things that we did the first year is we started with healthcare. That was our first lens, our first framework. And an important lesson that we learned was that 40% of minority-owned businesses say that their biggest challenge is health insurance, providing health insurance for their employees. So we went to work with our partners at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona and came up with a solution. I want you to watch the video now to tell you a little more about that.
You're part of the powerful economic engine that drives Arizona. Getting high-quality health care can be a real challenge. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona and the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce came together to find a solution to this challenge. The new Cultivate health insurance plans from BCBSAZ are designed specifically with your business in mind.
The Arizona Hispanic Chamber is proud to have partnered with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona to develop and endorse this new offering of health insurance plans designed specifically to respond to the needs of our Hispanic small business owners.
Cultivate offers Hispanic-owned businesses health plans to fit every budget and 3 deductible levels to choose from. Over 2,300 Spanish-speaking providers. Your choice of a PPO, no referral required, or an HMO for a lower premium. A statewide provider network that includes 98% of all hospitals and 96% of all providers, even in rural areas. Smooth onboarding and local customer service. Sole proprietor? We have other options for you.
The launch of Cultivate is the culmination of several years of hard work partnering with Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to develop a group of health plans for AZ HCC members. We are proud that this product offering was named Cultivate. It conveys diversity and integration as well as the commitment Arizona Hispanic Chamber and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona have to cultivating a relationship and offerings that satisfy the health care and budget needs of Hispanic small businesses.
How about a big round of applause for Blue Cross Blue Shield? This is an absolute game changer. And let me tell you that it didn't come at a price. Blue Cross Blue Shield dug deep. They brought the best on their team to develop this. So this was a very different conversation than we have with some organizations that say, oh, can we put, maybe some sombreros on a border and call it Hispanic heritage? That still happens, by the way. No, this was way different. This is at the product development level. This had to be approved by the Department of Insurance, and that means that small businesses with 2 to 50 employees can take part in Cultivate, but not just that. Any sole proprietors, any solopreneurs, if you have a family-owned business, if you have 1099 contractors, this is a game changer. We saw a problem, we showed you the data on it, and then we provided the solution. So today we are so proud and grateful for Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we are problem solvers. It's sort of what we do. And last year we covered education, and we saw a lot of issues within our education system. One of them was that in the US, Hispanics in graduate school programs only complete those programs at a rate of 5%, while the rest of the population completes them at a rate of 50%. So we started to think about that as well. We know there's a lot of work being done by some really amazing, intelligent people at the K through 12 level. We know that Dr. Crow, Dr. Robbins, our new Latino dean at NAU, as well as our friends over at Grand Canyon University, Brian Mueller, they're doing some wonderful work at the baccalaureate level. But what about graduate school? I'll tell you, I'm finishing my doctorate at USC in May, and it has been a long 6 years. And there were days that I was like, why am I doing this again? But it's for our kids, right? It's to make sure that they know that education is not just an opportunity, it is a non-negotiable expectation, because that is what we do in our families, and we educate our families. And so, thank you. So I hope you can call me Dr. Villalobos next year, but we'll see. I'll let you know how it goes. In any case, we went to our partners over at ASU Thunderbird, who have been phenomenal. They brought the whole idea of global mindset to Arizona many, many years ago as the international school, as a school of international management, right? So we spoke to Dr. Cogram, and he has a little message for us as well. If we can roll that, please.
Hello, dear friends. My name is Dr. Sanjeev Cogram, the Director General and Dean of the Thunderbird School of Global Management at Arizona State University. We are proud partners of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we salute the leadership of President Monica Villalobos and every single board member, staff member, period, of this incredible institution. For us at Thunderbird, our vision is a world of sustainable and equitable prosperity. And our mission is to empower global leaders and managers that will advance that sustainable and equitable prosperity. We have an oath of honor, which has 3 fundamental principles. We oppose all forms of corruption and exploitation. We respect the rights and dignity of all people, and we advance sustainable and equitable prosperity worldwide. Our commitment to global diversity, justice, equity, inclusion is unparalleled and unwavering. And as part of that, I'm honored and privileged to announce that we would like to offer any member of the chamber and any member who recommends another applicant a $15,000 scholarship for our #1 ranked Masters of Global Management, or a $10,000 scholarship for any one of our executive master's degrees. One that is located in Phoenix, the Executive Masters of Global Management, one in DC, the Executive Masters of Global Affairs and Management, and 2 very exciting ones in Los Angeles, the Executive Masters in Global Creative Industries, and the Executive Masters, the first of its kind, in Space Leadership, Policy, and Business. So again, thank you, President Monica Villalobos, for your incredible leadership, to the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for your leadership and contributions to our community, to our state, to our country, to our world. Know that we at the Thunderbird School are your proud and long-term partners. And this is just a small gesture of our collaboration and our commitment to our joint visions and missions. Muchas gracias a todos.
Great. How amazing is that? That is pretty incredible. So if you're out there and you're thinking, I might go back to school, you've got options. And we're so glad that we can be part of the solution for that, to increase Latino attainment at the graduate level. I can't tell you how important it is, not just for us as a community, but for our children to see that. It's absolutely critical. So we, again, are so proud of our partnership with ASU Thunderbird, and that's just yet another example of a data point that we saw, how we made it actionable with one of our corporate partners, and just one of the many solutions that we're going to continue to work on. I know also I want to thank all of our corporate partners, because these are the relationships that we are building. We estimate that there are 90 Fortune 2000 companies in the state of Arizona. We have an investment relationship with over 65 of them, and you can see them up here on the screen. These are companies that aren't just sponsoring, that aren't just investing, they are partnering with us to create better solutions. Please give them a round of applause, because I know a lot of you are in the room. Whoops. Did I skip a slide here? I'm looking for my founder slide, if somebody can put it on there. Oh, no, let's go back a couple. See, this is what happens. They give me a remote, they give me notes, I gotta be on a stage. I can barely walk and chew gums, so let's see, one more maybe? Back one more? Okay, well, let me tell you this anyway. 10 years ago, I couldn't get a ticket to this event. It's true. I tried to go to DATOS. I heard about this amazing event called DATOS, and I was a researcher, and I called everybody I knew, and I couldn't get a ticket. And to be standing here on this stage with you 10 years later, after having developed 10 of those books, and not just developed, it like birthed, because that's what it feels like. It feels like birth. So to be here is absolutely incredible for me, to have worked on 10 of these books and have provided, I hope, a little bit of impact into Arizona's economy is absolutely critical. I think we're doing that a little too soon, guys. We're still gonna have a seat. We're good? Okay, Judy gave me the okay sign, so I think that means that we're good. In any case, 10 years of DATOS, which is absolutely amazing. It's been an incredible journey, but I understand that I stand on the shoulders of many other great folks. So the founders who started this, you met one of them already, Sandy Fernisa, the first female president of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in the 90s, launched this precisely for all of the reasons she mentioned. And of course, Gema Duarte Luna and Rhonda Carrillo, who've been incredible mentors during this time. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. Sandy's gonna kill me, but when I asked her about taking on this role as president CEO, she was like, ay, mija, you sure you wanna do that? And I was like, I know, I'm a glutton for punishment, aren't I? But it was all good, and I was so impressed with her guidance and her support, and I am just so grateful. I hope that I can be half the mentor, half the role model that those three women have been for me, and I am so grateful that they are with us here today. Dr. O could not be with us, of course. For many years, he presented this as well, and so your legacy lives on. In fact, I am only DATOS 2.0. There is a DATOS 3.0, and I'm very excited. She is a little bit nervous. Actually, I think I'm probably more nervous than she is, because I'm a stage mom, and she's cool as a cucumber, but I'm a little nervous. We have an amazing young woman who has been working on DATOS for 3 years. She started when she was at ASU. She graduated. She decided to stay on, and I will be passing the baton on to her for DATOS, and she will be carrying on, hopefully, for another 25 years, because she's a little younger than when I started, and she will be carrying on the tradition of DATOS. She is an absolute rock star. We're gonna do a little co-presentation for you here today on the highlights, on the findings, to kick off the research research portion of this program. So at this time, it is my great pleasure to introduce to all of you Catalina Perez. Are you nervous?
No, not at all.
I'm totally nervous. Okay. So Catalina and I would like to thank the amazing committee that we have that works on DATOS every single year. These are subject matter experts that bring the data to life, that help us shape the narrative that ultimately comes out in the book. So at this time, I would love all of those on our DATOS committee to please stand to be recognized. Thank you for all of those that could be here and join us. They're hoping that you're not quite as crazy as I am, so we'll see how that goes. Also, we would love to thank our production team. This book, it is a labor of love. I don't think that you could pay anyone enough for the quality of this book, and a large part of that is not just the content, but certainly the way that it looks to you. And the person responsible for that is Carmen Martinez. If you could please stand to be recognized. She works wonders with all of our scribbles, so we're really pleased to have her on the team and hoping that we can keep the whole gang together, right? For another 25 years, that's what you're committed to, right? Right, that's the contract, I think. So we are excited. We're going to get into some of the data, Catalina. Welcome again, as always. Have a seat, and we'll start talking numbers.
Sounds great. Thank you, Monica, for that kind introduction. It's been 3 years of lots of learning and growing, and I'm so proud to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much. She's so much graceful than I was at that age. Wonderful, great. Well, let's talk about the data. We had a new census in 2020. We found out new information, particularly about the population, and we already heard Governor Ducey quoting DATOS and sharing that information. So we know we're making an impact, right, when the governor starts to repeat that. So let's tell everybody again, what did that journey look like for the U.S. Hispanic population?
Well, the U.S. Hispanic population is rapidly growing. Right now, there are 62 million Hispanics living in the U.S., and that does not account for undocumented or those living in Puerto Rico. And to put that into perspective, if those 62 million Hispanics were their own country, they would be the 25th largest country out of the 233 recognized countries in the world. That's larger than Spain and every Latin American country with the exception of Mexico and Brazil.
Wow, that is really exceptional. Now, was that consistent with what the census was tracking? Because although the census is only every 10 years, every year there's a projection. So was that consistent with what they were projecting?
Yeah, I mean, in the last decade, the population has grown 23%. We represent 19% of the U.S. population, and over the U.S. Hispanics accounted for 50% of the total growth over the last decade. So it's in line with what the census has estimated.
So I think it's safe to say that the future is a little Hispanic. We also know that if 1 in 5 Americans is Hispanic, that also jives with the fact that 1 in every 4 births in the United States is to a Hispanic mother. So I think we see a trend here. Are we seeing that same thing in Arizona?
Yeah, in Arizona, there are 2.2 million Hispanics. We represent 30% of the state's population, 40% of Phoenix Metro, and 50% of our K-12 education system. And Arizona is one of the top 5 states with the most Hispanics.
Wow, and we can see there on the chart that we have really moved up. We used to be top 10, now we're top 5. Time to move us to number 1, I think. What does everyone else think? Sound good? Let's do that. So overall, from a population standpoint, what were some of the key takeaways?
Well, 25 years ago, before I was even born,
She totally went there. Well, here's a fact that even you, Catalina, might not know, and that is that every Latina woman stops aging at the age of 29. So you're catching up.
Well, 25 years ago, 60% of U.S. Hispanics were foreign-born and 40% were U.S.-born. Over the last 2 decades, those numbers have reversed, with the majority being U.S.-born and 40% being foreign-born.
Wow, excellent. So even the composition of Latinos within the population is shifting and changing. Great. Well, you know, we hear a lot about Latino spending power. What does our purchasing power look like now in the U.S.?
In 2019, Nielsen put out a report that estimated that the U.S. Hispanic purchasing power would reach $1.9 trillion in 2023, and we reached that figure in 2020. And according to the Latino GDP report, if U.S. Hispanics were their own economy, they would be the 8th largest economy in the world. That's bigger than Brazil, Canada, and Italy.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, that's probably why Americans' favorite food is shifted from hamburgers to tacos. We can tell in the purchasing power. Do we know that that is also the case in Arizona?
Yeah, I'm really excited to report that in Arizona, we've seen a significant increase in purchasing power. In 2017, the Selig Center for Economic Research estimated that Hispanics would reach a purchasing power of $57 billion in 2022, and we surpassed that figure in 2020, reaching $63 billion.
Wow, and that's the figure that Governor Ducey was quoting as well. So we see a lot of that going on, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because we always talk about Latinos do a really good job of making money and spending money, saving not so much. So that's an opportunity for our financial services partners to work on just a little bit to make sure that we're also building wealth. And I know Javier Gutierrez is here with us today, the new president of the Arizona Coyotes. And yes, big round of applause for the Coyotes. And he's committed to helping Latinos in Arizona build wealth, not only through his company Suma, but in other ways through our community as well. And we are so grateful for the work that you're doing there. Now, what about businesses? How are businesses doing in the U.S.?
Our greatest increases have been in business. Over the last decade, U.S. Hispanic businesses grew 34% compared to all other businesses only growing 1%. And something important that I want to point out is that if it weren't for the growth of Latino-owned businesses between 2007 and 2012, the total number of U.S. small businesses would have declined.
Wow, that's incredible. So we continue to keep the economy afloat. I remind people all the time, when you look at the data of the last recession, when everybody else was sort of dipping, when other kinds of businesses were dipping, when other populations were dipping in their spending, Latinos kept on going, kept on spending. So we contribute quite a bit to the economy. Now, what about in terms of what they're making, in terms of revenues? What does that look like?
Yeah, over the past 2 years, Latino-owned firms grew revenues an average of 25% per year, while white-owned businesses grew revenues at 19% per year.
Okay, and are we also seeing that in Arizona?
Yeah, in Arizona, in the last decade, the number of Latino-owned businesses in Arizona grew 11%.
Wow, 11%, so a lot of growth. So we're seeing the same thing. While Latino businesses are growing 2 to 3 times faster in units horizontally, they're still not growing in average annual revenue, that vertical growth, which is why it's so incredibly important for organizations like ours and other business organizations to provide the resources to help those businesses scale and close the gap on average annual revenue. Otherwise, we're going to have that perfect storm I always talk about, lots of businesses making very little money. So that's always a watch out for us, I think, and we make sure that we keep an eye on that. Now, this year we are focused on housing, and there are so many different aspects of housing. We had to bring 5 other speakers to be able to give you a well-rounded perspective of housing. So we're going to set a little bit of context, and then we're going to let the subject matter experts come and tell you a little bit more about the future of housing and Latinos. But what does it look like right now for us? Oh, I missed an important point. This is like the most important point. Take it away.
Well, Monica, Latina-owned firms represent 18% of all women-owned businesses, and they represent 30% of all minority women-owned businesses. Between 2018 and 2019, minority women accounted for 50% of all women-owned businesses. And during that time, Latinas started 557 new businesses every day.
Every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
We're busy. We're taking kids to school. We're like working a job. We've got a side hustle, and now we're starting 500 businesses a day. I told you were going to like that slide, right? Really important to understand women's contributions. We also know that 66% of Latino-owned businesses here in Arizona are Latina-owned by women. So women are really legitimizing their side hustles, or as I like to call them, their chambaladitos, and making sure that they continue to contribute to the economy. So back to housing. What does housing look like in the U.S.?
The Hispanic homeownership rate is rapidly increasing. As of 2020, the Hispanic homeownership rate is at 50%. Nearly 750,000 homes were purchased by Hispanics between 2019 and 2020, increasing the number of Hispanic-owned households to 8.8 million. But what we should be most concerned about is that 22% of Latinos spend more than 30% of their income on rent or mortgage, compared to 16% of white non-Latinos.
Wow, interesting. So what we're seeing is sort of this flashback to the 1950s, right? When everybody knew that the way to build wealth was to buy your home outright, have an asset. We see Latinos doing that now. So we start to triangulate. We see the affluence that's growing, that increased purchasing power, but now we just need to keep an eye out for that risk of spending more than 30% on rent or on mortgages. So it's really important for us to understand as we build wealth how much to balance that debt, what's healthy debt, because there is such a thing as healthy debt, and making sure that as we follow the numbers, we continue to share that information and provide that that watch out, if you will. What about Arizona? What are we seeing in Arizona?
Yeah, in Arizona, the rate of Hispanic homeownership reached 55%. The Phoenix Mesa Scottsdale area ranks in the top 20 markets with the most mortgage-ready Hispanic millennials. And as a millennial myself, that's very exciting to hear. Conversely, in Arizona, there are only 26 affordable and available rental homes per every 100 extremely low-income renter households.
So also a double-edged sword, right? Any realtors in the house? Catalina seems to be shopping for a house, so you just might want to connect with her after the show. There we go. See, we got some in the back there. Wonderful. So we know that millennials, right? In general, the Latino population is 10 years younger than the rest of the population. Why is that significant? Because they're hitting life milestones and life markers with more frequency. Things like, you know, having a baby, getting married, buying a house, all of those things increase that purchasing power. And so we know that millennials are now launching, right? Because we were waiting for a while, right? A little, because millennials were kind of staying home and they were moving back home, and we were like, yeah, it's time. And so we've got them in a perfect place from an income standpoint to get them that they're already mortgage ready, and to get them into their own homes. But to your point, the double-edged sword is that we also know that because of the increased rents, a lot of people are getting outpriced of rentals, and that means more homelessness. And we have the wonderful Patricia Duarte to talk to us about homelessness to housing from Trellis Group. So again, it's a double-edged sword. We know that here, for every 100 of renters that need those, there are only 26 units. You look at our partners over in New Mexico, where Ernie Cidabaca, you'll hear from him a little later. He's the president of the Albuquerque Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And they've got like 53 units available, still short, but we're far behind that. So we need to make sure that we have a place for everyone, right? not just those who can afford it. And so for us, it's really important to make sure that we're sharing the information so that not only those in the industry, but legislators can also help us make really good informed decisions. So we're excited. Tell us about the future. What does the future of housing look like?
Well, according to this year's NAREB report, 70% of new homeowners will be Latino between 2020 and 2040. So the future is bright here in Arizona and across the country, Monica.
Wow, that is incredible, Kathy. Wonderful research. What we know is we are going to continue to have conversations with our housing partners to make sure that there is a place for everyone. And this is where it starts. It starts with this information, this data, and making sure that we are creating spaces for everyone in our community. Catalina, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for being here. And next year, I will be out there sipping on my mimosa while you're doing this presentation. You all have mimosas, right? Am I the only one? Thank you, Catalina. Great work, really amazing. So as you can see, for DATOS, we have a succession plan. We have DATOS 3.0. You'll hear more about that, but I know that DATOS and Sandy and Hema and Rhonda, who are out in the audience, our baby's in good hands. I'm not worried. So I think what the data really tells us is that we have some work to do, particularly in the housing industry. And we want to make sure that we continue to fight that fight, right? We continue to make sure that we are working for each other and collaborating, not against each other. One of the things that has struck me as we think about the Latino community and our purchasing power and the growth here is something that Jack Ma said. Does everybody know who Jack Ma is? A few people, maybe. He said, you know what? I had so many doors closed in my face, I had to start buying the buildings. So my message to you is start buying the buildings, right? Let's make sure that we're at the forefront of that industry. So it's, again, a very exciting time. I want to remind everyone to please continue to post on social media, hashtag DatosAZ. Let folks know if you heard an interesting fact, if you heard something that you thought was of particular interest. Please put it on social media. We want to make sure that we continue to trend as we do every single year. I want to share with you some other work we've been doing with DATOS, and we are very excited about this because we are working with a minority-owned firm out of Tucson called Think B. And I believe Salvador Rivera is here with us today. Where are you, Salvador? Are you here? There you are. There he is. So if this doesn't work, this is the guy to blame. I'm just kidding. It's going to work beautifully because he and his team have been working night and day to make sure that we can bring to you DATOS Total Access. And if we'll run that video now, you'll learn a little bit more about what that is. So what does this mean? You should know that only 25% of all the data we collect over 10 months every year makes it into the book. We are sitting on another 75% in our archives. This means that you now have access to 100% of the information we collect for DATOS directly. It goes straight to you, so you don't need to call me or email me at 2 o'clock in the morning, ask me how many left-handed Latinos there are. 10% of the population, if you were wondering. So now you will have that direct access, and I think what we're most proud of is that we were able to partner with Salvador and his minority-owned firm right here in Arizona to source that talent and that expertise. So we are looking forward. You're going to hear more from Vanessa at the end of the program, how to access DATOS Total Access, because that's how you're going to get your hands on the book this year. So we're really looking forward to sharing that with you. Big round of applause for Salvador and Think Bee. In closing, I just want to share with you, one of my favorite books is All I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Anyone familiar with that book? Well, I submit to you, all you ever needed to know, you learned from DATOS. Number one, numbers don't lie. Whether it's in statistics or when you're trying on something in the dressing room. Numbers don't lie. Number two, find the common denominator. We are far more similar than we are different. When we start to leverage our similarity and lean into our differences, we are stronger together. And number two, DATOS is not just a narrative of our community. It's your story, it's your story, it's your story. Everybody gets a story, right? And we want you to tell that story. Tell it proud and live out loud. Thank you.
Amazing. I'm not just saying that. I always am in awe that Monica does that every year with no notes, everyone. And I can tell you that is not an easy thing to do. So thank you again, Monica. Not just thank you, Monica, but also thank you, Catalina. By the way, that comment about 25 years old was ice cold. Did not go unnoticed by those in the room who are not 25 years old. All right. Your presentation not only enlightened us with a wealth of timely information, but really, truly, how amazing it is to see the significant buying power that our community has, the impact that our Latino community has. So now that we have a little bit more context when it comes to such an important and critical topic like housing, it's time to hear from subject matter experts to do a deeper dive into how the data plays out in different areas. So now I'd like to go ahead and invite our panelists to please come and join me on stage, again, so we can have a conversation, get additional information about this important topic that, frankly, I'll take the liberty of saying we all hold a responsibility of playing an active role in improving in our community. So as they make their ways to the stage, I'm gonna grab my seat over here. Hello, everyone, welcome, it's great to see you. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and thank you for the work that you and your organizations do, again, that is so important for our communities. So we have here this morning joining us, Gloria Munoz. She is Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Maricopa County. Thank you, Gloria. We also have, such a pleasure to see you, Patricia Duarte. She is President and CEO of Trellis. We also have Christopher Rodriguez, President and CEO of Ability 360. And last but not least, Amy Schrabenlender, Executive Director of the Human Services Campus. Again, let's give them all a big round of applause for joining us this morning. If you'd like to learn more about our panelists, you can find their bios in your program. So let's dig in. Here's a question that I want to ask each and every one of you. So as we all just heard, Monica and Catalina shared some important information on housing, and it found that basically I want to ask, on your experience and the work that your organizations do, what is, in reality, the current state of housing here in the state of Arizona? What have you seen based upon your expertise, and certainly under this pandemic umbrella of the past, 16 to 17 months now? We'll start with you, Gloria.
Well, the state of housing in Arizona, it's pretty critical. The shortage that you saw, mentioned earlier, about 26 rental units for every 100 people, I think it's a little worse than that. What we're experiencing is there is not any rental units in the market available for extremely low-income households. Right now, the National Association out of DC estimates there's about 136,000 units needed in Arizona for extremely low income. When you look at what the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, they're saying we need about 150,000 just rental units. And then when you look at the Phoenix Housing Plan, it's saying 163,000 units, rental and home ownership. So I feel we're in a crisis. We have such a severe shortage that we can't utilize all of our rental assistance programs because we don't have the units to send people to.
Patricia.
There's definitely, these are very interesting times. We dedicate ourselves to help people achieve the American dream of becoming a homeowner. And in our history, we have had over 3,800 families that have reached that goal. And right now, it's very disheartening that folks are bidding and they don't find the homes at their price range. So what is happening, and earlier this year, we learned that 1 out of 4 homes were purchased by investors earlier this year. And we need to pause and think about that. After the Great Recession, we lost a lot of inventory of ownership that converted to rental. And again, it was primarily institutional investors. I'm not making a lot of friends with investors as of late, but it's important to recognize if the future buyer is Latino, what are they going to buy? Who can compete with Wall Street? We need to think about what really is happening. 51st and Olive, there's a large community, single family detached, but it's rental. A 1-bedroom unit, 671 square feet, is going for $1,500. Someone can get, in today's interest rate market, they can borrow $300,000 to buy. And we know that ownership is a long-term solution for housing. We need rental, and we usually get narrowed, very focused on affordable housing as rental. I'm here to challenge everyone to think about affordable housing, also including home ownership.
Thank you, Patricia. Amy.
Well, thank you. At the far end of the spectrum, I work with people who are unhoused at the Human Services campus. We see about 800 unduplicated single adults every single day, 365 days a year. People who have lost their home, who have lost their rental home, and it really is, it's a pivotal moment, I think, in our history because there's so much one-time funding that came through the CARES Act, American Rescue Plan. There's so much emergency rental assistance available, yet there are not enough housing units. And I have calls and emails. We have people show up in person every single day who have been priced out of their home. They have been foreclosed on, they've been evicted, and it's all out of their own control. And so we are facing this one-time opportunity to take those dollars and invest them in real solutions, which includes creation of more rental housing and permanent homes that people can own and purchase. But we're lacking the units today to serve the people who need a home, and then we're certainly lacking the the affordability, the vacancy of homes to help people be rehoused. And the longer it takes to help someone find housing once they've lost their home, the harder it becomes for them personally. Their health deteriorates. When we talk about the social determinants of health, housing is health care. And so if you don't have a home, the longer you're without a home, the less healthy you become.
Housing is healthcare. Housing is healthcare, absolutely. So, Christopher, what are you seeing from your perspective?
Well, first off, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to share the stage with such accomplished individuals, and thank you so much for allowing an individual up here to represent the voice of people with disabilities, many of which are part of the Hispanic community. So take everything, let's just very broadly, the state of people with disabilities. There's some of the most unemployed individuals in the United States, unfortunately, and there's some of the most unbanked and underbanked individuals in the United States. So it's very difficult for them to build credit. And unfortunately, and if there's one thing that I can say here today in front of all these leaders is, helping them get a financial future and economic mobility like anybody else means helping them find jobs so that they can participate in markets such as housing. That being said, all these individuals, or many of these individuals, have special health care needs, ones that are not provided coverage under typical insurance plans and only can be found through Medicaid, which is basically the backbone of independence for people with disabilities. Unfortunately, Medicaid has what's called means tests, so they can only make a certain amount of income before they lose the supports that allow them to do things like be part of the community and have employment. Same way with their assets as well, there's asset limits. So for people with disabilities, in addition to all those other barriers that have been articulated today, they have asset limits, they have income limits, and oftentimes are underemployed. But let's erase all that, and the person with disabilities is fortunate enough to be provided the opportunity to have a job and earn money, and perhaps they can get through some kind of Medicaid buy-in program. The fact of the matter is, despite the fact that people with disabilities make up 20% of the population, and despite the fact that most apartment centers and rentals do comply with the ADA, but they do it to the bare minimum. So in a world where there is a lack of rental properties, these properties are only mandated by law to have 5% of their units actually accessible to people with disabilities. So it takes all these issues that have been so well documented and articulated, and it just compounds them.
Thank you for bringing that perspective, Christopher. Actually, I was taking a look at some numbers, and did you all know that actually the number of Americans currently living with a disability is up to 26%, and it actually makes up the largest minority in the United States. Those who are living with a disability, whether it's a physical disability, a mental disability, because remember, sometimes disabilities can exist, you just can't see them. Right? So we've talked about some of the challenges. I like to look also for the solutions. So Gloria, what can we do? What are you doing in order to improve the situation that we're talking about?
Well, the solution is creating more units, obviously, both home ownership and rental. Number one, I think, is the political will to do this. The localities where we do our business, I'm developing apartment communities. I think Patricia's developing one now. You run into problems. We don't have multifamily zone land. We don't have residentially zoned land. And you have to go through a zoning process. And I think that either we mandate it through state legislation, that housing is something that has to happen in a community. I don't think cities and towns want to see that happen, but I think we need a plan and policies that promote serving a whole diverse population economically, and people, with different streams of income, whether they're low or middle or higher. So we really, really need that political will to push this forward. The business community can help by pushing that agenda as part of their strategic planning to say, hey, we have a labor need. We need these units in our community. Please create them.
Well, and we are the 5th largest city in the United States, #1 in terms of speed of growth. So again, this is really an intersectional effort, I think, on behalf of business leaders, community leaders, and yes, our political leaders as well. Patricia.
Opportunities, right? I think this is a really good opportunity for all of us to rethink housing. Housing is a human right. With that perspective, I think that we all need to learn more about housing, and we have been very siloed. Housing, I tell everyone, it's the base. From your home, you go to work, you go to school. At home, you recover when you're tired. Home is where you have all your belongings. So why do we have homelessness in this nation? In this great nation? Why do we have that issue? So rethinking ownership, again, I'm an advocate for homeownership, and recognizing that not everybody can be a homeowner or want to be. We respect that. But on a personal level, I can tell you, I grew up low income. My parents have been low income all their life. They're now retired. They're on Social Security. On their income, they would not be able to afford rent anywhere in the Yuma County area. They are homeowners. They always have been, because a long time ago, you can do this in rural Arizona, or you used to be able to do this. They bought their little piece of land, and my dad built a home as he was able to. Never got a mortgage, but they're homeowners. And they're not suffering from housing insecurity. It's a long-term solution. In this nation, $39 billion are allocated every year to subsidize landlords. Landlords are not obligated to renew the leases. That's a lot of money that we can reframe to longer solutions. So we need to rethink how we approach housing in this nation.
Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, thank you for all of that, of like cheering on each other as we speak up here. And one of the biggest concerns I have are people living on fixed income, and people living with disabilities on fixed income, people living on their Social Security disability income. That income does not increase to match the change in the rates of rent. And again, it's extremely difficult to help someone find new housing once they lose it. And sometimes I think I'm an advocate for ending homelessness. I work at a place with 16 partners. All we do every day is talk about how do we end individuals' homelessness and how do we change the systems to prevent more homelessness. And if I was offered an opportunity to take, I don't know, a lot of money and put it in one intervention, I would say we have to keep people housed. Whether we label it prevention, homeless prevention, or rental assistance, mortgage assistance, we have to help people stay housed in the homes they already have. We have to find creative solutions to allow them to stay, to age in place, to transition in place. Because once people lose the home they have, it's incredibly difficult to end up unsheltered and unhoused, and to find your way back out of that, especially for our older adult population. And again, people living with disabilities who aren't going to, I'll transition to you, aren't going to likely get employment to make a livable wage to completely afford the cost of housing.
So in terms of people with disabilities, I would say three things. One, we need to allow them more opportunities and break down barriers for economic mobility, and that starts with employment. So all those leaders out there and your incredible businesses and whatnot, I encourage you, number one, to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, and I encourage you to make sure that people with disabilities are included in that, and then hold yourselves accountable to those documents because they're very important. So that would be one. Two, I would encourage the developers in the state of Arizona to go beyond the Americans with Disability Act requirements and make sure as they're building the future of housing here in the state of Arizona that they take that percentage up to at least 20%, which would be more in order with the population in general, so 1 in 5 people with the disabilities, because when they create accessible units, it's not like only a person with a disability can occupy that unit. It's accessible to everybody, not just a person with disability, so I think that's incredibly important. And the third one, which is more of a practical solution, cities have the opportunity to use HUD dollars for what's called home modifications for lower socioeconomic seniors and people with disabilities. So these are individuals that sustain a disability that their home, which they've lived in their community for years and years and years, is no longer accessible to them. Perhaps they need a roll-in shower now. Perhaps they have steps to enter their home and they're in a wheelchair now. In any other circumstance, that individual without the right modifications might have to go into a nursing home, be pulled from their community, go into a place that frankly the health isn't as good as being in the community, the quality of life is not either. Cities can choose to use those HUD dollars to actually have people come in and do free home modifications so that these individuals can stay in their homes and not lose them. So I would encourage all the cities in the Valley, which I think the majority do, to participate in that program and make sure it's fully funded. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Can I add one thing on the municipalities? I think that municipalities, many times, their hands are tied. We have a state law, and I'm going to forget the number, Gloria, but there's a state law that prohibits the municipalities to dictate the type of housing that is needed in certain locations. Guys, that's a problem.
Thank you for that. Absolutely.
It's inclusionary zoning. It's outlawed in Arizona. So we can't have any developer, anybody mandate any requirements at all to include affordable, the accessibility things that you're talking about. It has to be done on a voluntary basis.
I really appreciate, and I think our audience members do as well, the perspective and the additional information that you are providing to all of us this morning. As we get ready to wrap this conversation, I'd like to ask each one of you in 2 to 3 sentences, a call to action for all of us who are here listening to, I don't want to label this a crisis, because again, I believe in solutions. I believe in looking for the other side, but a call to action.
My call to action would be advocate and educate around housing and what the needs are in your community, and support the strategies that are developed around housing for a diverse group of people.
And I would request that our mighty home builders in this nation, that they build entry-level housing for our low-mod income workers. Since 1940, we have seen a decline of entry-level homes. And it's now less than 10% of what gets built in the nation. Less than 10% is for entry-level people. So that's my call for action. Let's get some homes built for the low-mod people.
2 to 3 sentences.
You got
think
this.
Before I start talking, I have a lot
this.
I would ask everyone to do. Everyone's in a position to be influential, to use your roles on boards, commissions. If we can all agree that housing is a basic human right, we do have the resources to ensure that every Arizonan has safe, affordable, accessible, permanent housing. It's a matter of finding the political will, the courageous leaders who will take on changing those systems. What weighs on my heart and my mind every day is that our systems have created discretionary policies, discriminatory policies, and I am saddened every day to see that Black, Indigenous, people of color experience homelessness at rates higher than white people. And as a white woman, I sit here and I would ask any of my peer, white, non-Hispanic friends to think about your role in systems and where can you disrupt systems and change policies to start over again and build systems that support equitable access to affordable housing for every single human being.
I think I kind of jumped ahead in the questions with my previous one. So again, include people with disabilities in your DEIs and hold yourselves accountable to them. Start building new structures that are universally designed and accessible for all, not just 5% of the units. And lastly, look into the home modification programs and make sure that those are funded, to make sure that folks who have worked so hard in their communities to be able to get to a point where they purchase a home, making sure that they can stay in it as long as possible.
Thank you so much to the four of you. Please, let's give them a big round of applause. Christopher, Amy, Patricia, and Gloria. Again, I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. The work that you and your organizations are doing every single day in our community is absolutely critical. And I hope that after this conversation, those of you who have had an opportunity to listen to what the panelists have said will find it within you to take action. Thank you again. So you heard it, our panelists shared challenges, but they also shared words of wisdom in terms of what we can still do when it comes to improving the situation regarding our housing market. Now you will hear from Tomás León. He is president of Equality Health Foundation to triangulate all of these elements, again, of a healthy community with a housing initiative. Housing is healthcare. He also serves on the board of directors of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber. So please, everybody, let's welcome Tomás León.
All right. Excellent. I feel the energy. Everybody's excited to be together and connected here. DATOS, 25 years? Wow. Catalina, you may have been not born at that time, but I was still in high school 25 years ago. So I appreciate those of you who believe that. So thank you very much, especially after this pandemic, you know. Everything's fitting a little tighter here and we're a little older. Let's bring the data to life, Monica said, right? It's not just about data, it's the story behind the data. How we use the data, not only bring it to life, but to transform our communities, transform businesses. And so I appreciate that, Monica. And I think this is the year of the Latina, right? Annette, our fearless leader on the board. Monica, leading the charge, you and your team doing amazing work. As a small business, surviving this pandemic, not just surviving, but thriving. You've really done an amazing job leading us through this transition. Gemma and the other founders of DATOS, our next generation, Catalina. The future is in good hands. And so when I was asked to step in and help land this plane and frame this conversation, Monica gave me a call, but I can see her doing this. Can you speak today and wrap this thing up? And I know that hand on the hip means I'm voluntold. Yes, I will do whatever you tell me to do. Happy to do so. So, excellent panel. Round of applause for the panel here today. It's an excellent conversation and giving you kind of a state of the state on housing. So I'm going to frame this, wrap this up. I'm going to land this plane, give you some thoughts and ideas and insights and hopefully some inspiration to take some next steps and be part of the solution as was talked about here. So they told me I had about an hour to do that. So is that okay? No. They said, no, Tomas, you have 12 minutes. I said, oh, wow. Have you heard me before? It didn't take me 12 minutes, but I'll try to be concise and wrap it up. Housing is, you also heard housing is healthcare. Let's get that PowerPoint going. There you go. So and one of the panel members mentioned, let's rethink housing. If you are a business owner, if you are leading and running a corporation, if you are in philanthropy, education, you should be thinking about housing differently. We should be rethinking how we address housing and solutions for housing, because housing is very much tied to health. And it's also tied to health care, but overall health of an individual. And just think about housing. Think about your own personal circumstance. Think about your earliest memories of your house. And I think housing is a little impersonal, right? It's more of a home. Think about your home. So I think about when I grew up, in a little neighborhood, Barrio Hollywood in Tucson, Arizona. Any Hollywooders here? A few, yes. The body of the beautiful people, we called it. But I think of our 800 square foot home. There was 8 of us in the house. From my memories, my parents were homeowners. My bedroom was the living room floor for a while. Then I graduated to the couch. And then I got my own room finally in high school. That was a great day, but the room was kind of the size of a closet, but nonetheless, it was my bedroom. And I remember our home was also a home for others in our family. Some days I come home and say, well, who's on the couch? Oh, that's your Theo George. He's going to stay here for a while. So we were providing housing for family members in transition. And you see a lot of multi-generational housing, houses here today, especially in the Latino community, because we're part of family. We want to provide that extended family. But there was a lot of trade-offs. I remember us not being able to afford being able to pay the mortgage and pay for medications or pay for health care or put food on the table. We got help with food boxes and those kinds of things. And so there's a lot of trade-offs. Even when you are a homeowner, it's tough. And you saw some of the data that speaks to that, where you're spending a good amount of your income on a home. And so you have to have a trade-off there. And sometimes the things that help promote your health and well-being are at the expense of paying that mortgage. Or if you're low income, you're not in a home and you're renting, that it impacts your ability to afford other essentials that are important to promoting your health and well-being. But let's tie this together to business. Housing is also business success. So part of the partnership with Blue Cross is creating more access to affordable, accessible, quality health care so that people can take care of their health and their wellness and promote health and well-being. A healthy employee is a likely productive employee and will contribute to the success of your business and the success of your company. And so, again, rethinking housing is important to tie that together with health and business success. So I wanted to talk about what's happening in terms of the evidence of housing and characterizing the relationship between housing, stability, quality, and safety and affordability that all affect health outcomes, as do the physical and social characteristics of a neighborhood. The impact of housing and the economy is now widely considered by policymakers. We heard a lot about policy recommendations and issues. As policymakers, we really need to rethink housing and the solutions on making sure that we have a safe and affordable and accessible place to live, because it's essential to a person's health and well-being. So housing is one of the best researched social determinants of health. Some of you may have heard the term SDOH, or social determinants of health. Those are all the factors that impact the health and well-being of you and myself and your loved ones. Housing is one of those factors, one of those social determinants of health. And there's a lot of work being done to try to figure out what is the best intervention or solution to housing to create that access, that quality, that safety, so people have a place to live and be well, live well. And so we have to call on our health plans and our health systems and our governments, business leaders and philanthropic leaders, who are all trying to find a way to determine where there might be the best intervention to more effectively provide affordable and accessible housing. And so you see some of the factors that are impacting housing on healthcare outcomes, healthcare costs, as well as business success, as well as our economic success. And so unfortunately, even though we've heard some promising data from DATOS, there's a lot to celebrate in terms of the purchasing power, in terms of home ownership and other kinds of indicators that were presented here today. But there's an asterisk. Unfortunately, we have this thing called the pandemic that hit us, and it really hit the Hispanic community hard. And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of ground during the pandemic, and we experienced, the Hispanics, we have experienced the greatest economic toll in the U.S. history. So 38% of households across the U.S. report facing serious financial problems over the last few months. You can probably think of family and friends and coworkers who have been impacted by this pandemic, who are struggling to make rent, who are struggling to pay their mortgage, who are struggling to put food on the table. And it really, and unfortunately, we have lost loved ones through this process as well. I have a cousin that's in the hospital, unfortunately, probably will not make it due to COVID. And so my prayers go out to you that have lost loved ones during this pandemic. But we have to remain strong and continue pressing forward and moving forward. According to the poll by NPR, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, they say black and Latino households, more than 55% reported serious financial problems. That's compared to 29% of white households. For many Hispanics during this pandemic, they have depleted their savings, have struggled to sustain employment, putting the American dream of home ownership out of reach or making rent a daily struggle. Thank you. So we're a resilient people. The Hispanic community is a resilient people. You know, my parents always said the setback is a setup for what's to come next. And I know that the resiliency of the Hispanic community will make up that ground, but it's going to take all of us coming together to make that a reality. COVID has generated a huge mortality in the U.S. Life expectancy, which plunged in 2020 because of the pandemic, especially for Black and Hispanic Americans, according to the National Institute for Health Statistics. The 18-month drop, the steepest decline since World War II, was fueled by the coronavirus pandemic. From 2019 to 2020, Hispanic people experienced the greatest drop in life expectancy by 3 years. And Black Americans saw a decrease of 2.9 years, while white people experienced the smallest decline of 1.25. So we have a lot of ground to cover, but we can do it together. And housing is a key component to ensure that we make up that ground and we help Hispanics not only become homeowners or access affordable housing and inclusive housing, but we help them build generational wealth and build wealth as we move forward. And you heard some of the panel talking about creating those opportunities to do that. So we all need to pull together in this pandemic and focus on addressing the root causes that many diverse and under-resourced communities at risk have experienced. We have a lot of ground to make up in the Hispanic community, but we can do it together. Juntos logramos más. I'm going to wrap this up here. At Equality Health Foundation, we decided to take a bold step in activating a well-being transformation movement called the Blue Zones Project in Phoenix. We aim to focus our efforts in a cluster of zip codes south and west of Phoenix that have been hit the hardest by this pandemic. A lot of diverse, underserved communities in these zip codes need our support. We need to launch this well-being transformation as we move forward. And it's part of this global movement of Blue Zones. Some of you may have heard about Blue Zones. They found that people reach 100 at a rate of 10 times greater than the United States in different parts of the world. So you see some of these locations throughout the world that Dan Buettner from Blue Zones and National Geographic study with longevity researchers, and you see some of these places where people are living a higher quality, longer life. And they report a high level of well-being, so they're not only living a longer life, but they're happier and they're socially connected. And so we identified this model to bring a model like this to Phoenix, Arizona, so we can implement and replicate it and create a well-being movement in our communities. And after doing that, we learned that people life radius or the area where their home is, they spend about 90% of their lives in this area, 90% of that area. It's called the blue zones. And that's where a lot of transformation can take place at a really grassroots local level. And I'm not going to go over all these, life radius or the power of 9. One of them is at 5, drink some wine. That helps promote health and wellness. I'm sure everybody's happy about that. I hear a clap over here. So this Blue Zones framework, which aligns with the elements of a healthy community that the Vitalist Health Foundation presented. So this model aligns with the elements of a healthy community. It also aligns with some of what we heard discussed here around housing solutions and some of the insights and recommendations by the panel to make some changes in a key area that impacts the health and well-being of individuals and communities. So the Blue Zone focuses in 3 areas around policy. Policies that help and promote health and well-being. Also people having access to health care, affordable and accessible health plans and health insurance and health care, and places where people live, your home, the built environment, and all of the policies around that built environment that helps promote health and well-being. So recently, the 89th annual meeting of the U.S. States Conference of Mayors, about 1,400 mayors from America's largest cities passed a resolution encouraging cities around the country to adopt a proactive approach to health based on the Blue Zones Project, widely proven model of well-being of communities. And so we're going to do together with a lot of our partners from the philanthropic community, the business community, corporations, education, the local grassroots level community, implement the first Blue Zones in Arizona, in Phoenix, in the south and west side of those zip codes. And so it's a bold mission and vision that we have, and it's going to take all of us to implement that. But housing and policies around housing and places for people to have an accessible, affordable place to live in those zip codes is key and essential to achieving overall health and well-being that translates into business success, that translates into economic success. And so I want to make sure that we don't leave here today without making a commitment to rethink housing and think about the role that you play in your company, in your corporation, in your organization as a policymaker on what you can do to create better opportunities for home ownership, better opportunities for affordable housing so that people have a place to call home. People have a place to bring up their families, and people have a place to build generational wealth. So it's a bold vision, and we can't accomplish this alone. It requires extensive collaboration across local communities to make sustainable and transformative change a movement for advancing well-being and equal health for all. I invite you to join us to accelerate this pandemic recovery. We have to cover a lot of ground and within the Hispanic community, and it's going to take all of us to not just support that, but all of us to be part of that solution so that we can have a greater impact in the health and well-being of our communities. Thank you for being here, being part of DATOS. Use that data and bring it to life. Use it to find solutions that are going to improve housing opportunities for all people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tomas, for that and all the work that you do with your organization. There's more, ladies and gentlemen. Already preparing for 2022, the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce does not stop. And here to tell you more about it is Ernie Cedevaca. He is president and also CEO of the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce and also a member of the United States Hispanic Board of Directors. So everybody, let's give Ernie a big round of applause.
Thank you all. It's great to be up here. And man, what a magnificent event.
one of the things I have to say is you can tell who's running the economy, who is out there running the economy, and who needs to be recognized for doing that. So I'm very grateful for being here, seeing what you guys are doing. I would be remiss by not saying we have another United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce board member, Christine Rice. Would you stand up? She's recently moved to Arizona, so everybody get a chance to meet her. Look, I know I'm standing between you guys and the raffle winner, right? So right now I'm not very popular because I got to get done with this thing. But I got to tell you this. You guys can help. You guys can help Monica. So the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we host a national conference every year. And 2 years ago, it was in Albuquerque, tremendous success. The year after that, it was all virtual. We know why. And then this past year, it was in Las Vegas, Nevada, just a couple of weeks ago. Monica has been working very hard to try to bring that to Arizona, to Phoenix. And I can tell you what, we need to get it here, but she needs help. She needs help. So I'm asking you all, and Monica, you're gonna have to figure this out, is somehow a petition. She's already working on, if not already submitted, her proposal. But if they could see how many people are here at an event like this, and I know it's about half its regular size because of COVID, I think you guys could help her bring that here next year. So I want you guys to help Monica do that if you would. The last thing I want to do is get Monica up here. Yeah, I get to do that because I'm on the board of the USHCC. Get up here. You know, running a chamber is not for the lighthearted. And doing events like today and the black and white, and I can't get this thing out to save my life. Have some cards in here too, but oops. Anyway, I want to present you. Come over here.
Okay.
I want to present you with the special recognition. Listen, everything here is difficult to do, and as well as it's been done, she's the leader that gets that staff to do it. And the black and white, oh my goodness, and just running the chamber every day. So we have a special recognition I want to present to you from the Albuquerque Hispanic Chamber. She is part of our region, Region 2, and she faithfully joins us every 2 weeks on a conference call, telling us what's going on. So congratulations, Monica. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I think it's going to be a raffle thing.
Thank you, Ernie, for that, and congratulations, Monica. Well deserved. All right, so I have a technology announcement, ladies and gentlemen. So earlier in the program, Monica mentioned that for the first time, actually, instead of getting that big printed book, you would be able to access DATOS through the QR code that you can find in your program. Actually, not the case. So, technology is wonderful when it works, not so great when it doesn't work, right? But you can still access all of the amazing DATOS information if you go listen to datostotalaccess.org. datostotalaccess.org, or if your cell phone cameras make it, you could also scan that QR code that you could see on your screens, and that will take you to, again, all the data. I just want to give a quick shout out again to all of those who are watching us via the live stream. Last I checked, we had about 100 people who were still with us, in addition to all of those who are here in the room. So again, thank you for hanging out and sticking with us. So, without further ado, here are the raffle winner. Here is the raffle winner. So, the winner for 2 tickets to the Black and White Ball happening on May the 7th, 2022 is Barb Strachan. Barb, are you here? Hello, Barb. So Barb is with the Girl Scouts, and Barb, please make sure that you see Elizabeth. She will get you the certificate in order to get those 2 tickets, and congratulations. Have an amazing time. All right, everybody. It's flown by, so thank you all again for staying with us. Thank you to our sponsors, our speakers, and especially again to all of you, our audience, for supporting this event every single year. Thank you to the staff of the Arizona Grand. Have an amazing rest of your Friday. It's always a treat to be here. Have a great weekend, everyone, and stay safe and healthy.